Welcome everyone to the Purple Teaming Mega Panel. Today we are going to talk about purple teaming. I know, no one's surprised by this. I'm Tanya Jaka. I'm the moderator of this panel. I'm the CEO and founder of We Hack Purple, and I'm generally obsessed with the security of software. But with me today, I want to go around the circle. So is there a chance, Ryan, that you could start off and tell us about yourself?
Hi, I'm Ryan Sapp. I work for Huntington National Bank. I'm principal security engineer for Purple Team and come from an enterprise background in a wide variety of industries.
Nice. Tracy, would you mind going next?
Yeah, my name's Tracy Webb. I work for Global Data Systems in Lafayette, Louisiana. I'm the director of information and cybersecurity operations, and primarily we cover oil and gas, but we also have several clients in the medical industry, and are stationed in 3 or 4 different locations, but have customers throughout the United States.
Awesome. Chris, would you mind going now?
Yeah, my name's Chris Ayers. I work with Huntington Bank on the Purple team with Ryan Sapp, and I'm glad to be here.
Excellent. Safe. How about you?
Hey, I'm Safe, and I work at Twilio as a security engineer, but I specialize in security architecture, and I had the opportunity in my career to work for healthcare companies and telco providers. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about Purple Teaming today.
Excellent. Okay, so viewers, if you're listening, we're going to answer the question that you really want to know, which is what is a purple team exercise? What is a purple team? Tracy, can I ask you to talk about this a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think for everybody, it's probably a little bit different depending on your economy of need and use. But for us, what purple teaming is we have a smaller SOC. We have to leverage the ability to be offensive and defensive, and kind of cross train our engineers and analysts to be functional in both of those spaces. So we have to think about everything, even as we're building it, really, to be acceptable to a purple teaming uh, ecosystem, if you want to call it that. So everybody kind of cross trains with each other. We make sure that people have an equal amount of training where needed in both adversarial and defensive architectures and understanding. So for us, purple teaming is just quite honestly due to our size and the level of effort and work we have in front of us. And purple teaming is the best way to get that done.
Nice. Does anyone want to add on to this? Ryan, I know you run a meetup about purple teaming, don't you?
Yeah, I run a Purple Team meetup with some large enterprises that I used to work at. But for us, the evolution went a little bit differently. At the bank, we started 3 years ago, and we created just a Purple Team. We already have a rather large blue team and our own red team, along with third-party pen test consultants. But as a larger enterprise, we have just more resources and more need for it. So we run it independently. We started with doing assessments with the red team and blue team, and doing the classic purple team approach with looking at different emulations, different APTs. But since then, we've gone, I would call it an evolution a little bit further, where we've done more. We've gone from unit testing to continual unit testing, where we've been using open source tools to commercial tools to evaluate any gaps, any data changes, and we've taken a risk reduction approach of constantly doing evaluations and constantly reporting back metrics.
Oh, that's amazing. Chris or Safe, did you want to add on to that? Because otherwise I have another question that's for you too.
I just wanted to add something about having a team or using like the existing talents. And with the current economical situation and with all the layoffs that we hear about on a weekly basis now, it's hard to have a dedicated team for a lot of companies, but we have talents, and it's better to recycle the talents or maybe to do more trainings and more collaboration especially like in this kind of difficult times.
Okay, so it's like you read my mind. So I was going to ask, do we need to have two completely separate teams? Like, do we have to have a red team and a blue team, or can it just be one team?
Yeah, I think there's advantages to having particular separate teams, just in the factor that a purple team, its basic job is to integrate with the other teams that are at the bank or at the company. And we work closely with them. And so we do a lot less closed book, closed box where we can't see what's going on. We work with the team and we're able to actually dig down in and see things that perhaps you wouldn't see from a blind test, and so if you're working from the red team perspective, you're adversarial, you're thinking, how can I get in? And that's the best attitude to have when you're on a red team. But on the purple team, you tend to, you want to keep those relationships fresh, so.
Absolutely. Safe, did you want to add on to that?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Chris. I was thinking about like I was like thinking about the answer. I would just like to piggyback on what I mentioned earlier, and we know that blue teams and red teams think differently, and yeah, that's how we want them to think. And if we have the same people doing both, sometimes it's not as effective as having dedicated teams. As a plan B, a cheaper way to do purple teaming is to have the same people do that. But you can also do rotations. Like we have different projects or products or different services that you are testing, especially if you do continuous testing, like what Ryan was referring to. It's good to have rotations. It's like the team doing the red teaming for this product will do the blue teaming for the other one, and then you rotate.
Okay, so I have a question that goes right with what you said. And Ryan, I'd love it if you could help answer, but what do smaller teams do? Like, how can they test the blue team or even have a red team? What would be a good investment for a smaller company?
Right. Yeah. And there's no one size fits all approach. There's different resources, different demands, different businesses. So I think from a smaller scale, one thing that you can do is you can start looking at open source. That's where we started. We started with Red Canary, I think, is on this conference. We started with Caldera. We started just with Python running some attacks that we could automate the best we could. So I think there's a wide variety of resources if you start searching. There's some great Terraform scripts out there that will spin up a Caldera instance for you, and all you need to do is put the agent on some VMs or VDIs, and you can start getting some metrics, doing some attacks, and moving forward.
Nice. Does anyone else want to chime in about? So I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree there. I mean, what depending on the size of the company, also gives you the you can either gain uh, some some availability to kind of do what you want and be a little more freewheeling, and sometimes you can't. Right? It just depends on management's idea of training. But I mean, I know for us, like we've taken part in several attack emulation type tabletop exercises, and the safe part, what's what we did. We kind of switched the table around where we'd put some of the more blue team leaning folks in a red team seat and vice versa, and have them kind of make a competition of it, right? And I mean, one of the other things that we looked at from a smaller business, I say a smaller company. I mean, we're making great EBITDA, and we're a top 300 MSSP, but we've also looked at outside third party sources, which we haven't necessarily engaged with yet because I'm a security guy and it freaks me out to have people looking at my network. But we're probably going to end up engaging with a third party pen tester just to test our own bones, right? To see how much we've really accomplished. Because if you sit in your own echo chamber of doing these things and thinking you're knowing exactly what's going on, you tend to lose reality, and sometimes you need a quick kick in the butt to realize, hey, maybe we need to think about this a little differently.
Yeah, when I was a pen tester, I'd often say you have to hire a different pen tester next year because you already had my opinion. And because we all look for different things. Okay, so I have the opposite question now. So that's what we could try to do for smaller companies. How can we scale something like this for larger companies?
So larger organizations, they have more resources. That's the first thing that we all agree on. It's like more people and more budget. And sometimes that's also a problem because you end up with a lot of stuff that you don't really use, and it's wasting money, of course. But it's like the first step that like a large company should start with is looking at what they already have before go and buy the shiniest new tool out there. That's something that especially Fortune 500, 100 do all the time. It's not bad, but we can do better. And another thing is about it's like you scale up, you have all the tools you wanted, all the people, but then we we ignore not we ignore, but we don't give it the right importance. We don't give detection and alerting the right importance because you can use the strongest encryption. Of course, your red team may not be able to break it most of the time, but then it's like, are you really sure that if something happened in your whatever blind spot area, that we'll be able at least to detect it in time, or at least to detect it? It's like, and not be like blindsided and focus on prevention or the purple teaming you are doing. But then it's like not having visibility is, I think, the worst thing.
Oh, yeah. What about everyone else? How can we scale this?
You got to start with your baseline. You got to see where you're at. You can look at past assessments to see. I know personally we've looked at what matches in each assessment, where are gaps, where can we, what can we do to fix it. Part of our job also is an R&D aspect too, where we actually tackle some of these alerts, tackle some of these repetitive findings, and have solutioned stuff in-house to address these. To scale it, we, like I was talking about earlier, it took us a 3-year process, but we went from just doing assessments, doing it on a smaller scale, just with the blue team monthly, quarterly, to now doing it more on a continuous basis. Data is very malleable, and just because the alert worked 1 month doesn't mean it works this month. And you'll find that if you keep testing stuff, you're going to find a difference. And that difference can be the key to catching an adversary at different layers.
Yeah, just to add to what Brian was saying, if I could, I mean, I know this sounds counterintuitive. You think that would most any business would have already had some risk measurement and would have already captured a lot of what I'm about to say, but you wouldn't believe how many companies out there that haven't satisfied CIS control number one, which is inventory, like inventory of hardware and software within the enterprise. So, I guess you could use both sides of that coin. You could potentially perform some red teaming things against the enterprise to bring about the awakening that we need to do the first thing, which is inventory we have, or bring up the inventory and say, okay, did anybody even know that we have this? So, I mean, it's again, it sounds counterintuitive, but many people have been, kind of flying the plane as they were building it for many years in these companies, and solid inventory control has just never really happened.
I could not agree more, Tracy. So many startups have come out in the past since 2021, specifically focusing on like web asset, like APIs, web apps, serverless, and stuff like that. Yeah, as a person that does app tech all the time, it is the biggest problem. And I want to start right there. But I have a great quote from Tracy for the next question. So I wanted to ask about how do different industries do this differently. So, for instance, there's healthcare, telecoms, IT companies, critical infrastructure. And I remember, Tracy, during our warm up, you said certain industries are like a melting pot of worry and need. And that really struck home with me about how certain industries really need a lot more help than other ones. So, who wants to talk about how different industries do this? Say if feel like you. Okay, no, Ryan, you go first. You go first.
Yeah, so I was lucky. I worked in defense, healthcare, infrastructure, banking, and got to see a lot of the main ones that are industries that are aggressive in cybersecurity, in retail. Sorry, they all take different risk tolerances. They all look at it a little bit differently. Your retail doesn't look at it as the same as a hospital. I was in a healthcare system once where they were really afraid to do vulnerability scans and look at all their assets because they were afraid that their risk was that if they did a scan and it took down some old device, that could stop a surgery, that could stop a life. And that's a different than looking at, right now in banking or looking at it from infrastructure standpoint. You don't want to take down any of the power grids. So they all have different risks. They all have different lenses, and all those are kind of interesting to see and experience.
Yeah, when you mentioned healthcare, I remember my experience at Abbott where like we had manufacturing sites, and it I wouldn't say it's out of the question to patch a system because there are other ways to secure it. But when you have different, like a huge variety of technologies, like old technology and new technology in different sites making different products, it's not simple. It's complex. And the same thing if you go to telco, and I would say my first impression working in telco was, oh my god, no one cares about security. It's like, yeah, it's like, do we have sites on air? Is it working? Like, oh, our customers are happy, throughput is good, and that's it. Physical security is maybe one of the priorities. It's like the sites are locked, we have cameras or like security guards, but then whatever is inside that uh, like small technical room in the middle of nowhere has like default passwords, and it's the case everywhere. Like I would say in 5 continents it's the same thing, but it's like that's the first thing, the culture. It's like no one cares, and then technology is different, it's not like it. And the third thing is it's a live network, which means if you do anything you may lose money, or for sure you will lose money, a reputation, and it's hard to gain customers back. And yeah, but now like with 5G, I think 5G scared most of the telco like really well, so they are starting to taking it more seriously. That's what I would say about the current state. But yeah, there are a lot of stuff to fix and harden.
No one has mentioned government yet, so I feel the need to chime in because I did 13 years with the Canadian Public Service and I did counterterrorism things. I helped run the election security, and I fear the red teamer that threat models because if they come in and do the same tricks that they would do on like a healthcare company or a telco or an IT company, it's very different risks that a governmental organization is worried about, right? Like if you're running an election, you really want everyone to have the chance to vote. You worry about voter suppression and all these other things. And I feel like a red teamer or a purple team that also is aware of the specific threats to that business or organization, like healthcare specifically, right? I feel like they could do some serious damage during like a practice, like and really raise awareness potentially with upper management about those risks. Have
Oh
any
yeah,
of you, yeah, sorry,
I'm
Tracy.
sorry to cut you off. It just struck a nerve because it's really about understanding the center of gravity. What I call the center are the family, the 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 crown jewels, the center of gravity, where the family silver is hidden. That if you know that about the company, the organization, the entity, the individual, then there's a whole you can start producing a whole lot of intelligence around how to find those pressure points through social media, through physical security, through whatever that may be. And when you talk about that, then that's another way you can talk to potential clients about providing security is really getting down to the weeds with them and going, okay, what's your center of gravity? How do you do business? Where's your biggest revenue centers? Well, we're a medical company. Okay, well, if that SQL server in the corner over there that hadn't been patched since 1986 were to go down, would you be able to do business? Oh no, it would crush us. So as a purple team or red team or a blue teamer, if you know where the centers of gravity are of the or what the most value is held by the individual or the organization, you can sell security to that effect and try to help them get hardened. Or if you're being malicious, you can definitely wreak a little bit or scare them into considering maybe rethinking their security posture.
We call that identifying the crown jewels. We rate where our money centers are, what effect it would have, it's a complete risk assessment. And I've done that in other industries as well. And then pairing that with any threat intelligence can help. Uh, it'll help simulate your attacks, whether you're doing an ATP or if you're just doing Emotet. That's you got to figure out what's relevant to your industry and your business.
Definitely. And you can provide better defenses for them, right? Because you protect the things that matters most. Safe, did you want to add in?
Yeah, I wanted to add something about listening to Tracy. I remember the timing, because in a lot of cases we know what's out there, we know the threats, and we are working on testing, validating, and securing our organization from the different threats. But then there is also the timing, because of course we will never be 100% ready, but a lot of threats are tied to timings, like somebody trying to interrupt elections will do it in election time. This is too obvious. But then you have geopolitical stuff. If you are making a vaccine and we have a pandemic and you are a healthcare company, you don't need like somebody from the big four to come in a suit and talk to your CISO, say, hey, I think you need to be ready for this, or I think you will see 400% increase in cyber attacks. Sometimes it's obvious, like you know that the timing is now, but of course you work for that rainy day. But yeah, timing is in a lot of cases, it's like because that a week or two can make huge difference if you work at least on the top 10 things that you can fix like quickly. Let's say pandemic started, you are a healthcare company, choose 10 things you can improve for the most important, let's say, site or product or team, or it's like at least do something. Like I just wanted to tie the two ideas about timing and the most critical assets.
Absolutely. Chris, were you trying to chime in there? I wasn't sure.
I've forgotten the question.
No, 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 no. I actually have a new question that I wanted to ask you, but before I like set you on a new topic, I was like, okay, because we talked before the recording, and so I wanted to ask about metrics. So like how do we say to the client like we succeed, we did a good job, or how do we say, to our boss, like what are key success criteria that we could present?
Well, I'm going to tell you one of the things that we did. We hadn't been in this agile Scrum based thing for like a year, and we're just starting to do that in our team at Huntington. Have been doing it everywhere, but we just because it's hard to do this in a purple team type, team where you're constantly getting new things all the time, and so we're doing that, and it's going to help us with measuring a lot of the things and help us to be able to get additional headcount, which is one of the things we've been struggling with because you can't measure the success, of an engagement. And so what it's going to help us with is now we're going to have metrics, and on those metrics, using the cards in the Agile system. If you're unfamiliar, it's just these little like index cards basically that you fill out, and it has like the requirements that you're looking at to fulfill in those things. And that's really helping us for this year. I mean, Ryan's going to agree that we're just going to be able to show now the success story because we've had them, and we're using Agile and some cards, but we weren't keeping track of it in a Scrum matter as we are now. And so if you're not using that, even if you're a small company, if you can just somehow get some metrics together, I think that helps a lot with the overview of what your success story is.
Okay. Does anyone else want to chime in, Ryan?
I was going to say, but metrics from assessments too is kind of another side of it. And for that, we started with Vector. Vector is a great platform for using different, for putting all our data into different assessments and saying, hey, this is how we did this. And it started to tell a story over time. It was a lot of manual input, and that is the hard part of doing a system like that, but it is free and widely available and pretty easy to set up. At least it used to be free. I don't know if that's changed, to be honest, but
That's true.
those things change, as you know. But yeah, some type of tracking mechanism can really help sell the benefit you're doing, the risk reduction that you're able to do by making the metrics, because a lot of these metrics don't exist till you kind of sit down and do the grunt work and start showing everybody where we're at and where we've improved. So
We had a lot of great measurements for milestones, like large things that we completed, but we weren't picking up the smaller impacts that we were making with the various teams, because we reach out to fraud, and we're reaching out to fraud and helping them with some stuff here shortly. And we get a lot of departments that are like, Wait, you do that?" And they're like, "Oh, that'd be great, and come on, aboard." It's almost like people don't exactly know what purple teaming is, so it helps to inform them.
I have questions about metrics. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I was listening to both of you, and it's like one of the top things that always like I find it as one of the problems, especially in red teaming, is how to not be ignored when it's like you find something. Oh my god, it's bad, but maybe it's not in the top three for this year. But then people may forgot about that. And at the same time, how to integrate what you get from red teaming or purple teaming in general into your risk registry, your risk dashboard, to make it visible to everybody.
That's actually a great question, because one of the things that we do get a lot on, a lot of things in a larger organization, a lot of things that we find, they just don't get addressed because there's so many other bigger things that need to be taken care of. And so before we had a purple team at Huntington, there were a lot of things that, weren't being like, oh, that was maybe too hard, or that's, like, that's going to be a problem we're just going to have forever. We're able to take those and then carry them forward and maybe find, and not always. Like we have one right now. I mean, I won't go into detail, but we have one right now we're struggling with, and we're going to have a presentation for it, but we don't have the solution yet. But with the advent of AI, in some new, the new ways that they're using that, I think we're going to find something. We're going to find some models and stuff we can use to detect these things. So, but I'm sorry, what was your question again? I forget these questions all the time.
I feel like you answered. Safe?
Yeah,
Okay, good.
yeah, yeah. Because my question was about you answered the question, but yeah, it was about how to um, how to keep the management leadership informed and give them that sense of urgency when it's really bad, to get the support to take actions, because in a lot of cases you need engineering to fix stuff.
Yes. So you talk to your endpoint team that actually, provides laptops for people, and you tell them that your computer is just going to need a couple video cards. And then you get the video cards, and then you find a way to get a desktop in so you can, do some things. So yeah, so you have to think creatively. Sometimes do a little bit of social engineering because things aren't, like you said. There's an issue that needs to be addressed, and you want to take care of it, and they're not understanding the need. And so sometimes in order to provide the need, you need to do a POC, you know and so then you can show the metrics for what you're providing, versus what we have now. And I mean, we've had meetings with some executives, just honestly, and they're just like, you don't think that's a problem? I mean, that's a problem. You're like, oh, we've moved beyond that. No, we haven't. We're still dealing with that problem. So yeah.
I'd say,
Yeah, you're still vulnerable, even if you have emotionally
Right.
moved beyond it. Sorry,
right.
Ryan.
Yeah.
I'd say your architects and your risk team are your best friends. Different organizations have different risk teams and different sizes, but if they are there, they can be a great partner and can help push stuff through for you.
If you can connect the risk you found to a dollar amount and get that in front of a CFO, watch the paperwork begin to fly. You just got to get the right guy to look at it.
That is a good point. Okay, Tracy, for you, how does a company get started with purple teaming? Like, are there prerequisites?
Well, I mean, not really. It's like everything else in the security business. It's, you can take this all the way back to what's a security person, right? I mean, you have to start somewhere, right? I mean, for my situation, over the years, I've been a part of great security teams in the military and through the Fed space and then having my own business. So when it came to GDS and they said, we're going to do this, we need somebody to build it from scratch. It was a little different for me, right? Because I already had a visual in my head of the kind of personalities, the kind of talent, how I was going to team up, put the team together for the big win, so to speak. So for me, I mean, there's a need, right? Every company, large to small, has got a security problem and a risk problem. And you got to do something with it. You got to take it internally and build a team around that of qualified IT people that have a specialty or a passion for security in any of the various religions that we're talking about here, and have them work together and just start building it. Or you've got to give that risk to an MSP or a managed detection and response firm or somebody. You got to do something with it, right? But for any small business, I would say, 200 employees, multi-site location, um, just start with the IT staff that you actually have. Look at what their abilities are, see what their passions are, and kind of cultivate that. If you don't know enough as an IT manager or director, have the humility to bring in someone that does and listen to their ideas and just kind of move forward. I mean, the security problems are never going to go away. We look at it every day and it can be very daunting. You put one plug in the dam and there's another one over here and it can get very overwhelming. I mean, I think the name of the game is just like, keep doing your best, and keep being a herald of common sense and trying to bring security into the front of the guys in the C-suite, and just do the best of what you can as long as you can. I think that's all we can do.
Does anyone else want to add on to this before I shuffle us to the next question?
Yeah, I was thinking of a joke to start my my talk, but I was going to say it's like get $30 million as a budget, then go to Gartner Magic Quadrant and buy all the leaders.
That's the key to success, huh?
That is not a good way to start.
Yeah, but I really wanted to just say that I know Tracy said it all, and yeah, I think that's the best approach. And the first thing is that yes, you can get started, like regardless of the size of the company, but you need to look at your existing resources and talents before starting, and then have clear expectations on where you want to go. And I know Tracy talk about assets. If you don't know what you have, of course, you won't do a great job protecting your company or knowing what's the most important assets you have. So because that's where you will need to focus, especially if you are small, you don't have enough resources. You need to focus on the most important stuff. So yeah, I think I think that this is it.
I would just add one basic criteria for me would be I don't know if you'd be ready for purple teaming exercises yet if you're in your infancy, if you don't if you can't, if you're not scanning your network, if you don't have any way to track vulnerabilities, you don't have anybody that's looking at it, responding, it's just going to kind of go out the window if you start doing some of these assessments. So I guess I would start there. That would be my criteria before I started doing purple teaming.
Definitely having good security hygiene so that you don't just have the worst results ever and you feel demoralized. Sorry,
Yeah,
Sid.
because the purple teaming process will rely on your existing security mechanisms, technologies, and processes. And if you're going to discover vulnerabilities and issues and you don't have vulnerability management process, it's like how are you going to effectively do blue teaming? It's like red teaming will give you issues, but then how are you going to manage your security and do like security effectively? Yeah. Thank you, Ryan. I think, yeah, I totally missed that.
And then that's what we do with continuous security validation. We don't throw the whole boat at them. We don't show them everything that they're vulnerable right away because it'll be a firestorm. They'll think that the world is burning,
They
right?
will quit.
We show them, yeah, we're starting from a process where this is the improvements we can do. This is where we're getting better. These are gaps we're filling, and it's just a little bit twist on the lens that I think gets a better response.
So on that topic, so let's say you get into the elevator and one of the executives is there from where you work and you're like, I have around a minute to try to talk them into trying to consider purple teaming, like doing a purple team exercise. How would you bring this up with, so like, you're chatting and you're like, I want to do this thing. So they're C-level, they're super smart, they don't have a cyber background. How would you try to pitch that?
I've pitched it. I've had that experience actually, and I've pitched it in a way they're relating it to the military that the same way that you would go on a range and practice at a range, you need to practice your cybersecurity, and that's how you make improvements and get better.
That was the same thing I was going to say. I mean, luckily, the company, like I said before, the company I'm at now, I was kind of brought in for the purpose of, right? But in the past, in those situations, um, if you can, especially if you know a little bit about the background of who you're talking to, I think it's the easiest way to make the connective tissue work in their brain is to bring it down to something that they understand, a military concept, or even, a lot of executives do these offsites where they learn from other executives about other parts of the business and things like that, right? You can't affect any change or be effective in anything unless you really understand both sides of the objective, and the offensive and the defensive side to be well rounded in a subject, right? So I'm with Ryan on that. It's like, you can't get proficient or be better at something if you don't have an ability to practice against an adversary or foe, or pick the nomenclature. And that's the best way to kind of communicate that, because let's be honest, most of these C-suite guys are alpha males, alpha females. They understand, the need to kind of be in competition. So, go with that direction.
Yeah, they're the people that get stuff done. Safe, did you want to add anything to
Yeah,
that before the
yeah,
next
sure.
question?
Like Tracy said, leadership, they know what they are doing in most of the cases, and they have the experience, they have the decision making. So it's not about having them like like to make the right decisions or not, but it's like the same way they decide for the business in a lot of cases. It's like if we keep them informed and we show them why we are doing it and the impact if we don't do it, the same way when we talk about putting the dollar amount on the findings to like make to translate them into the leadership language, that's something really valuable, like dealing with this kind. That's like the same way we do secure, like we exist because of risk management. That's why we exist as infosec teams. But then it's like our language is threats, severity, and so we go from there to a dollar amount, and then we quantify the risk the same way we do security. We do it like in a threat informed way. The same, that's their way of like understanding it and like to help us move forward and give us the resources.
Okay. So we are almost out of time for the purple teaming mega panel. And so I wanted to go around the circle and just finish off with a key point that was part of this panel, which you wish that the viewers would take home. And so the thing that I really liked the best was, so Ryan started it and all of us went in on it, is the idea of figuring out what the absolute most important thing, or maybe Tracy said this, the most important thing to the business and what keeps them up at night, and then focusing our testing and our defenses around protecting that thing. And so I thought that was a really good take home. So who wants to go next?
I think again, I think it would, regardless of the size of the security team, whether you are just a heavy blue team or not, or if you're moving away from just a defensive posture more into a purple teaming a red team or purple team. I would say, like, just don't listen to the clutter that's out there. Um, just continue to be passionate about the work. Find your own inspirations out there. Several really smart guys in this industry that provide some really kind of breaking guidance on how to look at these issues. Don't get caught up so much into, and this is going to sound crazy, but don't get caught up in so much into the certifications, right? Yes, we need them. There's a time and place for them. They look good on a resume, but it's more about hands-on. It's like finding good mentors, getting in the trenches, really learning the trade craft, spending time with the equipment that you spent your money on. You know, like Steve said, you've got a sim. It's the sim you have. Learn to be the expert on that sim. Don't be looking at the next great, because if we did that, there's new technology turnover every 6 months. We'd never be experts at anything if we just kept buying the shiniest new toys, right? So it's really just continue your passion, keep your head up. The industry is only going to grow. It's only going to get more lucrative, and there's only going to be more opportunity. And don't let anybody stifle your enthusiasm as you grow into security.
I like it. Safe?
I would say three things about this. It's like maybe my way of summarizing, um, like um, my if I was listening to this, these three things would be my takeaway from what all of the smart people we have here said, answering the questions. Is the first thing is, regardless of the size of your company, you can get started. Of course, consider what Ryan mentioned about being ready for it. It's like if you don't have the processes and the way to manage security, it will be hard to be effective in red teaming or purple teaming. The second thing is there are a lot of open source and free tools you can use. There are great frameworks you can adopt, great free training resources. You can start with that, even if you have the budget. And then the last thing is, one of the biggest problems in InfoSec is skills, talents, human resources. Wasted. That's the most important thing. It's like, because we have people, process, and technology, and we all go directly to technology if we have money. If we don't have money, we go back to people. That's what most of the companies do. So please take care of the talents, and because that's the most valuable asset.
Oh, I agree. Ryan?
I'd say, just to go along with what you guys are saying, I'd say being fearless and finding your passion, spending the time, the hours to dig into different tools, different open source software. There's a lot out there. There's a lot you can learn. When I mentor people, I stick them on some I won't name any names, but different labs you can find that can help teach you some red team tools and get a different perspective if you're just a blue teamer, and vice versa. There's different sim labs you can do, and so it's getting a full picture, I think, is extremely beneficial to see both sides, because a lot of times they get stuck on just one side and don't always see the full picture.
Ryan, I think that was actually a really good advice. And I have to say, it's very difficult to follow up after Tracy and Safe because they both made really good points. And so often the last person on the panel is like, I don't know what they said. So I thought that was really great. Oh, Chris. Okay.
I'm
Chris,
back.
we are finishing the panel. And I was wondering if you would perhaps say the key takeaway from this panel that you liked the best, because you probably have a different opinion.
I really liked just the collective answers from all of the different, the different focus, coming from a financial to some of the other areas that you guys are looking at from. We obviously are required to do external pen tests every year, so we already have a team that does that for us, that takes care of doing an external facing without our myopic vision of the things that we're looking at. Trying to keep our heads out of one particular problem and keep them open to the various things that are out there. So
there's a lot of stuff to worry about. If
there
anything,
is.
after talking to all of you on the panel, there's more than I might have been worried about before this panel. Well, thank you all of you for being on the Purple Teaming Mega Panel. And we are going to go on next to the next session now.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.